Hello YouTube and welcome to another Windows tutorial. So in this video I'm gonna show you some Windows local user and local enumeration. So are you ready? Let's get started. So as I told you, we're gonna actually do enumeration of users, groups and computer manually in this video, okay? So you don't need any software or utility in order to do that. You just actually launch your command prompt and execute these commands, okay? So these commands are very useful if you are doing some pen testing or for post exploitation of your Windows system, okay? So first of all, as you can see here, I'm logging to my domain controller, which is part of a domain. So if I go to the computer properties, you can see here that I'm running Windows Server 2019 data center, okay? So it's part of the domain, as you can see here, aminos.local, okay? So first thing first, let's check the current user on the system, okay? So in order to check the current user, simple as type in who am I. Here we go. So you can see here the name of the domain, which in this case is aminos, and the current user, which is administrator. But that you can guess it from the command prompt. Here you see administrator, okay? So we are logged as an administrator here, okay? We can also check the privileges for the current user. So in order to do that, we execute the same command, but we add /priv for privileges. Here we go. So you can see here all the privileges that are assigned to the current user, and in the last column you can see the state if they are enabled or disabled, okay? So for example, here you can see profile, single process, create a page file. All these privileges are disabled here, okay? And some are enabled. For example, create here global object, okay? So it's pretty nice also to check the privileges to see if the current user have them or not, okay? So let me clear that. Let's say now that you want to check the user groups to which the current user belongs, okay? So here I'm logged as an administrator and I want to see the groups that this administrator belongs to. So it's pretty simple also to do it with the same command, but we have to replace priv by groups. Here we go. So here you can see all the different groups that the administrator, which is the current user, belongs, okay? So here you can see server, operator, administrator, groups, of course, because he's an administrator. He also belongs to the group users and other groups, like for example, as you can see here, different groups, enterprise, admin and so on, okay? So remember here I am part of the domain, so maybe if you launch this command in a computer that doesn't belong to actually a domain, you will get fewer groups, okay? So let me clear that. Let's see, for example, now all the local users in this machine. So in order to see all the local users, we execute the command net users, or actually net user, okay? So here you can see all the user account for the server I'm actually logged in, which is a controller, a domain controller. So of course we have administrator, we have Amino, we have guest, we have Yassine, we have KRPT GT, we have radius user, okay? So these are all the users or the local users to this machine, okay? So of course, if you want to get or to get info about a particular user, we execute the same command, but we add here a username. For example, let's check some info about this user Amino here. We can just type Amino, okay? And you get more info So if you actually have full name, it will be displayed here. So the account is active, yes. Account expires, never. So you can see the password last set, password expires, and so on. So are all the different info about our user Amino. And of course you have the local group memberships and also the global group memberships. Okay, so this command is pretty useful if you want to check info about a particular user. Okay, so let me clear that. We can also display the local computer policy settings. If you want to check them, you can type net accounts. Okay, so here you will see the local computer, the account policy actually, and the password policy here. So for example, for the password policy, you can see that the minimum password age is 1 day and the maximum password age is 42 days. Okay, and of course the minimum password length and so on. So it's also very interesting to check from time to time this net account command, which displays the local computer policy. Okay, so now let's move on to the group enumeration. Okay, so in order to display all the local groups in this machine, we type the command net local group. Here we go. So you can see all the local group in this machine. So we have some defaults like administrator, like backup operator, cert publisher, and so on. So these are all the local group in this machine. Okay, so let's say now that you want to check users that belong to a group. Okay, so for example here we have let's say for example let's pick up a particular group, for example administrator, and let's say that we want to see all the users that belong to this group. Okay, so we can easily do that executing the command, the same command, but we have to add here the group name. So we want to check the users that belong to the group administrators. Okay, here we go. So here you can see all the users, all the members of this local group administrator. So we have of course the administrator, we have Amino, we have the domain admins, enterprise admins. Okay, so all this is all the users that belongs to this group administrator. Okay, so you can see how useful these commands are. Okay, so finally let's end with some computer enumeration. Okay, so of course if you want to display the name of this computer, you type the famous command that exists also in the Linux world, which is hostname. So you can see the name of my machine, which is a domain controller srv-w2k19. Okay, so it's pretty simple command that you execute all the time in Linux machines, for example. If you want to get more info about your computer, you can also type the famous command system info. So this is pretty nice command that will gather a lot of information about hotfixes, about the processor, and about the operating system. Okay, so here as you can see we have a bunch of information. We have also the host name here, we have the OS name, so you can see that I'm running Microsoft Windows Server 2019 data center version. Okay, so of course it's for Microsoft. And if we move on, you can see the system manufacturer is VMware, so because I'm running this Windows in a virtual world actually. So a lot of information like the total physical memory. So all this information are pretty interesting for diagnosing your system. Okay, so of course here you have the domain, logon server, and the hot fixes, which is also very important if you want to check the vulnerabilities of your system. Okay, so here we have 8 hotfixes installed. Okay, and of course you have your network card and so on with different IP addresses. Okay, so always check this info about your system. Another useful command, if you want to check the services that are running currently into your system, you type the command task list /svc if you want to check the services that are running. Here we go. So also it's pretty interesting information about your system, about the processes that are running currently into your system. So you can, for example, check if a particular program is running here. Okay, like for example SQL Server or something, or like SSH daemon. So here for example you can see that SQL Server is running in the background here, which is pretty nice information also. Okay, another command that always you'll check if you are doing some networking stuff is to check the IP addresses or network cards into your system is of course ipconfig /all to get all the information about your network cards. So these are all the network cards in your system. Of course here it gives also the host name and the primary DNS suffix, which is the name of your domain. Okay, and here are all the different IP addresses related to the network card into your system. So here you can see that I'm using 192.168.1.1. okay, and of course here you can see the default gateway and DNS server, which are valuable information if you want to get connected to your system. Okay, so all this command also is pretty interesting. Another one that is also pretty used is if you want to check the default route in your system, you type just route print. So it will give us, for example, the default route, which is here for the network destination 0.0.0.0. So you can see the default gateway here is 192.168.1.1. okay, and of course here the interface name. So this is also pretty useful information for network engineers. Okay, and finally let's terminate by checking the state of our, for example, firewall. So you can see that firewall plays a great role in network security. So if you want to check the state of your firewall, you can type the netsh command followed by firewall, then show state. Here we go. So here you can see, because actually I belong to a domain, so the profile is the domain, the operational mode is enabled, which means our firewall is enabled. It's not disabled, because if it was disabled, it's a security breach in our system. So the exception mode is enabled because we have some exceptions that allow, for example, ping or something like that that have been performed in our system. Okay, and the group policy version is Windows Defender Firewall. Okay, so all this information are very useful if you want to enumerate your Windows system. So keep in mind, here I gave you just some basic commands that you can use in order to check or to enumerate the local user, groups and computer for Windows. So that was just a brief introduction to the local user and local enumeration, but here we are using that manually without any external tools. Okay, as always, I hope it has been informative for you, and I want to thank you for viewing. Bye bye.